Okay, hi everyone. This is probably going to be a pretty chaotic video as I have not written anything. I just have a bunch of notes and I wanted to make this relatively quick and I wanted it to feel as natural as possible as I think it requires that. I want to talk about New World. So I've made a few videos about New World. I released a review and I made two humoristic videos about Brimstone Sands and PvP. So just to summarize things, so a lot of people played New World on release. The game reached 900,000 player count, and it was just amazing. Like, the launch experience of New World was something incredible. Like, everyone was PvPing everywhere. It was just pure chaos and everyone was grinding, and then people seemed to enjoy the game and there was a lot of reasons for it. First of all, it looked great. Like, a lot of MMOs don't look that good, but New World looked really good. The environments were incredible, and the gameplay was pretty cool. Like, it was simple, you didn't have 20 buttons to click, but yet it was dynamic and felt pretty good. But then, I was on my server one of the first people. I was in the batch of people who reached the max level first. And so, because I grinded my way through it. And I really enjoyed it. But then, once most of us reached max level, which was level 60, that's when we started to realize the amount of problems New World had. And so we discovered the expertise grind, which was horrifyingly bad. You had to spend hours and hours doing the same chest runs all the time. It was boring, and then the enemy variety was very bad because we had explored all the maps. And I remember one of the first things I said in my review was that I was expecting to meet Romans because I spent my entire leveling looking for Romans in the game, never to find them because they were not in the game. And then most of us started dropping off. A lot of players started dropping off. Like, the game had a 90% player count drop. It went from 900,000 to 90,000, and then now I think at its lowest, it probably reached something like 11,000 or 13,000, which is very, very low compared to the original numbers. Because people realized that the game was not as ready for release as people thought. It had no legit end game except PvP, but PvP was not that balanced at the time. It was pretty horrible. And then there was this insane amount of bugs and exploits that were everywhere. On my servers, we did not have too much exploits. I suffered most from the infinite hatchet damage exploit, but it was just horrifying. And so then I was one of these players who dropped the game, as most of the people was playing it dropped it. And then I started coming back from time to time because I was like, oh, let's go check this out, a new update released. And so I started playing the game on and off. I played a bit when the Void Gauntlet was released. I played when the Tempest Heart was released, I played it. And I played on the release of Brimstone Sands. And then I gradually, as I was playing on and off, I gradually saw that the game was getting better. But the number of players was still relatively low. I think it hit something like 20,000 maximum when I was playing. But the game was getting better, and some people were gradually returning to it. And there was a lot of players that were obviously playing it all the way along. And then recently I decided to play it again, just because I wanted to try things out, see how it had evolved again. On and off, as I said. And then a few days ago, they released a trailer for a new expansion. When I started playing again, people were already talking about an expansion coming And I discovered that they had completely erased the first zone of the game, First Light, replaced it with some Angry Earth zone that was inaccessible. And I was thinking, yeah, it's going to be a lot of people were saying, oh, it's going to be a new region, but I was immediately thinking like the expansion is going to be a rework of First Light, of the first zone. And then they released a trailer and some explanation, some dev explanation about it, and it clearly was, as I expected, a rework of the First Light area, which was going to be an expansion, and there was other things inside what they said that really started to make me realize that New World is probably going to become much better than it already has in the last few years, because it's been, I think, 2 years since the game was released. So, I want to talk about the few things that are going to come out on the 3rd of October, because that's the date they gave us. So, they are removing the expertise system, which is, to me, probably the most important and good change that the game has seen since its beginning. The expertise system is one of the reasons a lot of players quit, because grinding it was not fun and unbalanced everything. Like, because you were rewarded for grinding shit for hours, but there was really nothing to use your expertise on, and it was just, I don't know, having this random number that at the beginning was not even displayed was just, I just don't understand how they came up to this system and thought it was good. Then they're also removing wards. So this is a bit more specific, because for a lot of players who maybe quit because of the expertise system wall, they probably never really encountered the warding thing. But basically when they added mutations, which were difficulty levels for dungeons, expeditions, there was this mutation system, so which were difficulty levels. And in order to complete the last difficulty levels, and even the first ones, you pretty much had to have a ward gear, which means a full gear that had resistance specific to the enemy type inside the dungeon. And so what this led to is that a lot of the last difficulty were completely gatekept by the fact that most people didn't have these ward sets. And so this was really a pain to deal with, because you had to farm a set for each enemy type with resistances on. And they are removing it, and they are also changing the difficulty so that more people can access expeditions, which means that when the expansion comes out, it will be easier and less grindy to get some good gear that you're not going to throw around and change every time. So they're also removing resilience, and in general, resilience was a perk that reduces the crit damage you took, and that was pretty much mandatory for PvP. So if you did not have a full resilience set, you would get completely destroyed most of the time. Sometimes no, obviously if you're a godlike player and you dodge everything, yeah, you would probably not need resilience, but like, because it was just way too powerful, and like 99% of the PvP sets had resilience on most of the pieces. And so what this made is that there was absolutely no build diversity, because the perks that were on armor had no impact on the diversity of builds you wanted to make. Everyone was taking the same perks. And so with the removal of resilience, the fact that pretty much the gear score will not be much of a problem anymore, I think it's just going to make the game so much more enjoyable in the coming months and years. There's also adding mounts. I know a lot of people were asking for mounts from the start, so it's finally coming, which is going to be very good. I was not sure on how they would implement mounts, because the gameplay of New World was pretty grounded. I don't want to say realistic, because it was obviously not, but it was relatively grounded, and so I was afraid of them adding some crazy fantasy looking mounts that you would just pop out of your ass randomly in the middle of the field. But now I'm less worried about it, and I really want to see how this ends up. They're adding a new weapon, the flail, which I'm very excited about because I'm a healer main, and it's a buffing weapon, a weapon you use mainly to buff your allies. And I'm really excited about it. I'll finally be able to make a paladin build. So I want to end this video on the simple question is, should you come back to New World now? I think that with all the changes that have been made and that are going to happen, the game is really worth coming back to. The changes they've made to quests and PvP in general make the leveling experience way more interesting than it was before. To give you an idea for those who remember this, but the leveling that existed, the best way to level in New World was spamming town projects. So you just made basic filler quests that were boring, fetch quests boring as hell. And now the quests are way more interesting. There's even some cinematic things happening in the quests where I was going to zoom in on some characters. They're going to have some more fleshed out dialogues. It's way better than before. The quests have been pretty much all revamped and voice acted. It's way better than before. Overall, and the change in expertise is going to make it less grindy and more interesting in general. I want to say that on a graphic point of view, on a design point of view, the game has been amazing. And one of the best examples of this is, I advise you to try, if you're level 60, to try the Tempest Heart Expedition. Because I think that's one of the most beautifully crafted dungeons I've ever seen. It's just a pure beauty and awe shot, despite it being in a kind of horrific corruption setting. It's just beautiful and I love it. Brimstone Sands was a great thing. Now, I want to point out one thing before you make your final decision about coming back to New World. So first, I encourage you to go to New World. Now, I want to point out one thing. When the expansion is going to come out, it's going to be buy to play again, which means you're going to have to pay to access the expansion. That being said, I am 90% sure that it's going to be buggy as hell on release. Why do I think that? Every update, despite the existence of the PTR, every update in New World has been pretty buggy on release. And the best example is something that happened 2 days ago. They released an event where you had to defend 3 eggs to get some loot from angry Earth enemies, blah blah blah. On release, every event was bugged outside of Brimstone Sands. The enemy would stop spawning. The enemies would stop spawning. And it's still bugged to this day in some areas on my server. So, I want to say that as good as the game is, and even if most of the very annoying bugs that existed in the beginning have been fixed, it has really become, in concept, a very good game. Now, on a technical point of view, it has some problems, and on release of the expansion, I am sure it's going to have some bugs. Now, that being said, despite the bugs, I still think the game is worth playing, worth coming back. And considering the quality of the work they have done and how well they have listened to player feedback, because the update they're going to release on the 3rd is pretty much 90% extracted from player feedback. The removal expertise is something the players demanded. Resilience and wards are also things the players demanded, but also the artifacts, not something player demanded, but it's a very interesting concept. So I'll just end this because, as I said, it's going to be pretty chaotic. Yes, I think you should give New World another chance. My best advice would probably be to start playing the game something like now or a bit before the release of a paid expansion. Why? Because when the expansion releases, most people are going to play the expansion content. But I think the people who want to get back into New World should probably try to experience, test out the field before paying the expansion. So, playing the game as it is now a bit before buying the expansion, to know if the changes they have already made fit what you like. That's going to be the end of this video. I'm very excited to dive back into New World, because that's a game I always loved from the start, wanted to succeed, and was very sad when it started falling from grace. I am glad it now has a chance. It has, in my opinion, gone in the right direction to becoming once again a very good game that we all can enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do not hesitate to subscribe. There's going to be some New World content, even if I really encourage you to check out the New World videos I've already made. And I guess I'll see you again in Eternum. Bye.